My entitled cousin's dad demanded free tutoring because I'm family, and he said real love doesn't send invoices. When I refused to work for free, he started whispering that I had turned greedy, that I was just a student pretending to be a professional, that I didn't care about his son. He didn't know I save everything. He didn't know I was ready to drop every receipt in front of the whole family. I am a 24-year-old woman, and tutoring is my job. It pays my rent, it funds my textbooks, it keeps my phone on and my fridge from being empty. People who have never tutored think it is just an hour of sitting next to someone and telling them to do problems. It is not that. It is lesson design. It is diagnostics. It is building study plans and accountability systems. It is practicing patience while a teenager tests boundaries, because school has taught them to fear being wrong. It is hours of preparation for 1 hour of FaceTime. When I do pro bono work, I choose it myself. I plan it in advance so my paying students are not displaced. I am generous when I can be. I am not a volunteer on demand. My mother's cousin has a son who is 16. We are not close. We see each other at weddings, and at the kind of barbecue where everyone brings a dish, and the elders keep a scoreboard of who showed up first. His father is the kind of man who believes family means access. He likes to say, family helps family, but he always means family helps him. He waits until a room is full, and then asks for favors loudly, so saying no feels like a sin. The day he began this saga, he asked me about my tutoring, in a cheerful voice that carried over the table. He said it must be nice to make a little pocket money while I finish grad school. I said it is not pocket money, it is my work. He nodded as if I had agreed with him. He said his son is struggling in algebra, and since I am family, I can tutor him for free. He did not ask, he announced. I said I would be happy to send my rates and recommend a starter package that works for most of my students. He stared like I had answered in a foreign language. He said I did not understand, because family does not charge family. I said I do not charge my mother for dinner. I do not charge my friends for a hug. But I do charge for my job. He smiled without his eyes and said we would talk later. I left that gathering with a heavy feeling in my stomach. I knew he would not let it go. Entitlement rarely stops at the first boundary. The following Tuesday, he texted me a list of times. He said choose a slot that works. He used the kind of tone that assumes compliance. I replied with my rate sheet. I told him my current availability. I included a small discount that I give to referrals because I am not cruel. He answered faster than I have ever seen him type at a family game night. He said I must be joking. He said if I truly cared about his son's future, I would do it for love. I said I care about my own future as well. I said love does not pay utilities. I said I am a professional, and this is my rate. He responded with a paragraph about how our grandparents would be ashamed to see me put money over blood. I told him I do not weaponize the names of dead relatives to avoid paying living people. He went silent. I thought maybe the subject had died. I was wrong. The rumor phase began like a slow leak. My mother called me sounding confused. She said she had heard that I refused to help unless I was paid some ridiculous amount. She said my uncle told people I wanted luxury prices to spend an hour with a boy who just needed help. She said he implied I had forgotten where I came from. I felt heat rise in my throat. I asked her who said it. She named 2 aunts and a cousin who repeats anything that sparkles. I told my mother to breathe, and then I sent her the screenshots. She read them and went quiet. Then she said the words that always make me feel less alone. She said, I am sorry this is happening to you. She said she would correct anyone who asked. She said she did not raise me to be a doormat. I told her I would handle the rest. That weekend, the whispers spread. A cousin posted on social media about people who get 1 degree and suddenly think they are above the community. An aunt wrote a comment about how true love refuses to monetize kindness. I do not live my life by Facebook walls. But I also refuse to let lies settle into the shape of truth. I started gathering. I pulled the message where he assigned me a time like I was his employee. I pulled the message where he laughed at my rate. I pulled the message where he said real love does not send invoices. I took screenshots of the thread. I annotated a timeline for my own sanity. He had texted first. He had demanded first. He had turned public first. I checked the family group chat. He had already been planting seeds. He wrote vague notes about young people who spit on the hands that fed them. He wrote that some of us act like professionals, even though we are still students. He wrote that his son had no one. He wrote that he was disappointed in the way today's generation treats elders. People responded with sad faces. People responded with hearts. People responded with silence that sounded like agreement. I breathed. I decided to be precise. I crafted a message that did not drip. I wrote, "Here is the full context for the conversation regarding tutoring." I attached a collage of screenshots with visible dates and names. I added a single sentence at the end. I wrote, "Tutoring is my job. I charge for my job. I will not be discussing this further in private channels. Transparency is the only respect I will offer here." Then I pressed send. The group went electric. A cousin texted, "Oh." Another wrote, "I did not know that part." An aunt tried to scold me for airing family matters. I wrote back that the matter became public when lies were told in public. I would have preferred to keep it private. That option was not offered to me. My phone began to buzz with private messages. Some were supportive, some were neutral. Some felt like petitions for me to be softer so other people could stay comfortable. I ignored them for an hour because I needed to choose my next step with a clear head. When I checked again, I saw a long message from the man at the center of this. He wrote that I had humiliated him. He wrote that I had betrayed family. He wrote that he was only trying to help his son, and now I had made him look like a beggar. He wrote that I should have kept the screenshots to myself. He wrote that he had always been there for me. That last sentence tripped something inside me. I tried to remember one time he had been there for me. I remembered the graduation where he arrived late and left early. I remembered the Christmas where he borrowed a charger and never returned it. I remembered the job fair where he promised to send my resume to a friend and then never asked for it. I could not find a single moment that matched his words. I wrote back in the same chat so the context would hold. I wrote, "You were not there for me." I wrote, "You demanded free labor." I wrote, "You insulted me when I said no." I wrote, "You lied about me in this group." I wrote, "I do not owe you a correction in private. I owe myself protection in public." He stopped responding. His wife began to post motivational quotes about forgiveness on her page. His son unfollowed me on every platform, and then followed my best friend as if to pull a symbolic lever. I spent Sunday with a headache that felt like a small storm. On Monday morning, I returned to work and met 3 students who needed help with exams. I did my job. I felt better. The next message that mattered came from my grandmother. She asked me to visit. I went after my last session. She lives in an apartment that smells like orange peel and laundry detergent. She poured tea and said she had seen the messages. She asked me to tell her the story from the beginning with my own mouth. I did. I said, "I am not angry that he asked. I am angry that he demanded. I am angry that he lied. I am angry that he tried to paint me as a villain because I did not donate my work to him on command. I said I hate being made to choose between my boundaries and my family." She listened. She nodded. She said a sentence I will keep. She said generosity is a gift and a boundary is a door. Both belong to the owner of the house. She squeezed my hand. She said she was proud of me. I left her home with air in my lungs again. The next few days were messy. 2 aunts tried to schedule a mediation chat. I declined. They wrote that forgiveness heals. I wrote that accountability heals first. Meanwhile, the father of the boy did not stop. He started telling people that I had promised free help and then changed my mind. He told a neighbor that I had a reputation for flaking. He told my aunt that I was unstable because grad school stress was getting to me. He told my mother's friend that I was jealous of his son's athletic success and wanted to sabotage him. The stories contradicted each other, but rumors do not need logic. They only need volume. I made a folder called Narrative Management because a small part of me loves names that sound like spy novels. I saved each new rumor with the source who repeated it to me. I did not plan to use the folder. I kept it because patterns tell you who to trust. In the middle of that fog, the boy himself messaged me. He wrote, "I do not need charity." He wrote, "My father says you are not even that good." He wrote, "We will find someone else." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I wrote back that I hope he finds a tutor who respects his time and who he pays fairly. I wrote that I wish him luck in algebra. He did not respond. I put my phone down and let the silence be a wall. The next family gathering arrived whether I wanted it or not. It was a birthday for a little cousin who only cares about cake and balloons. I decided to go because children deserve to see me when the adults are loud. I arrived with a board game and a smile that was real for the child and armor for the adults. People watched me the way people watch a person carrying a glass full of water near a white carpet. My mother hugged me. My grandmother kissed my cheek twice. The man did not greet me. He stood in a corner telling a story with wide arm movements. When he finally looked my way, he gave me a smile that said he expected me to crumble. I did not. I sat with the kids and taught them a math trick with playing cards because magic is usually just arithmetic in a sequined jacket. The boy laughed. He asked how I did it. I told him practice and patience. His father watched with his mouth tight. After cake, an aunt approached me and said she had heard everything and that perhaps I could do just a few sessions for free as a gesture. I said no. She said, "Think of the child." I said, "I am thinking of the child. I am thinking that he needs to see adults pay for work so he learns to respect his own." She huffed and walked away. I let her go. I am done chasing people who prefer a free lie over a priced truth. At home that night, I wrote a long post in the family chat. It was not a rant, it was a policy. I wrote that from now on, I will not discuss my rates in public. I will not negotiate in public. I will not participate in any conversation where someone questions whether I should be paid for my work. Anyone who attempts to drag me into such a conversation will be met with a single reply. My reply will be, "Here is the link to my scheduling page." I ended with a line that felt like a lock clicking. I wrote, "If you respect me, you will respect my profession." The chat was quiet. I slept well for the first time in weeks. The next morning, I received 2 new inquiries from people outside the family who had heard I was good and professional. Word travels both ways. The father posted a long message on his wall about how integrity is dead. He included no names. He needed the shape of a villain more than he needed the details. I let it float past me like a balloon tied to nothing. The son took a math quiz and scored poorly. He messaged me the photo with a caption that said, "Look what you refused to fix." I stared at the little red number and felt nothing but a tired sadness. I wrote back that accountability is the first step to improvement. I wrote that blaming others never raises a score. He left me on read. I put the phone down and went to work. I had 3 sessions that afternoon, and all 3 students left with a plan. That is the difference between work and rumor. Work leaves a plan, rumor leaves noise. That weekend, my grandmother invited people over for soup and soft bread because soup lowers temperature and bread softens pride. I went. People came. The man did not. His wife said they were busy. Everyone knew what that meant. My grandmother served bowls and then told a story about when she started her first small business selling handmade things. She said neighbors asked for discounts and extras and free samples. She said she learned to smile and say, "I am not the right shop for you." She said the neighbors who respected her prices became her community. She said the rest became chatter. She looked at me when she said that last sentence. I felt seen. I felt steadied. The next day, I opened my calendar and blocked time for a pro bono workshop at the community center. I did it because I wanted to remember that generosity is a power I control. I announced it in my professional channels. I did not mention it in the family chat. The people who needed it signed up and arrived on time. We did algebra, we laughed, we finished with a checklist, they thanked me. I drove home with that steady kind of joy that only comes when you choose your own giving. As I reached my street, my phone lit up with a new message from the father. He wrote, "We should talk." He wrote he did not like how he looked in the group chat. He wrote he would appreciate if I apologized for making him look bad. I sat in my car and breathed. Then I typed a sentence that tasted like closure. I wrote, "I will not apologize for telling the truth." I wrote, "Pay professionals for professional work." I wrote, "Do not contact me again unless it is to book paid sessions through my site." I pressed send. I blocked his number. I walked into my apartment with my head high. The story could have ended there. But families are ecosystems. The consequences need time to settle. They did. They began to settle in small shifts that turned into a pattern I could name. People started asking him to organize his own favors instead of assigning them to others. People stopped playing along with his public performances. People changed the subject when he brought up his son. That is how isolation begins. Not with a door slamming. With chairs that are no longer pulled out for you. Not because I campaigned against him. Because truth changes gravity. Because receipts rearrange the furniture in a room without you touching a single chair. Update 1. A month later, the family planned a picnic, and my grandmother quietly told me he was not invited. This time, she said the elders had decided to let him sit with his choices for a while. She said gossip breaks plates, and someone has to wash them. It might as well be the person who threw them. I thanked her for the kind, but I did not celebrate. Isolation is sad even when it is earned. At the picnic, my aunt asked if I felt vindicated, and I said I felt done. A cousin apologized again for believing the first version and asked if I would ever consider tutoring the boy at my full rate. I said I would accept him like any student if he and his father can behave like any client. She nodded and said that sounds fair. Later that evening, my mother hugged me and said the noise had finally quieted. I told her that love without boundaries is just free labor with a pretty label. She laughed through her nose and said put that on a bumper sticker. I went home, prepared lesson plans, and slept with my phone on silent. The receipts were filed. The weeks after the picnic were quieter. People seemed to understand that the drama was over. But silence never lasts forever in families. At another gathering, someone mentioned school again. My cousin's father, the entitled dad at the center of it all, had been avoiding me. He stopped sending messages. He stopped showing up to family group chats. But he was not done. He started telling outsiders that I had destroyed his son's chances of getting into a good college. He told neighbors that I cared more about strangers than my own blood. He told his friends that I was money hungry. He could not accept that his lies had collapsed inside the family, so he tried to build a new audience outside. The problem was that people inside the family had already seen the truth. My grandmother made sure of it. She told everyone who asked that she had read the screenshots with her own eyes. She told them no one should be shamed for protecting their work. My mother backed her. Other relatives nodded. Slowly the balance shifted. Where once people whispered against me, now they whispered against him. They said he had embarrassed himself. They said he had pushed too far. They said he had turned his own son into a pawn in his tantrum. I focused on my work. I had new students. I had referrals. I had enough income to cover rent without panic. Every hour I spent teaching gave me more confidence that I had made the right choice. But the entitled dad hated that he was losing control. He sent me one last message from a new number. He wrote that if I really wanted peace, I would admit to the family that I had overreacted. He wrote that he had been under stress and that my screenshots had humiliated him. He wrote that if I cared about healing, I would delete them and tell everyone it was a misunderstanding. I stared at the message. Then, I deleted it without reply. I blocked the number, and that silence became my loudest answer. He wanted me to carry his shame so he could walk lighter. I refused. Update 2. The final turning point came at another family dinner. He showed up late with his son. He sat down and tried to act normal. But conversations avoided him, like oil avoids water. When he mentioned school, people changed the subject. When he complained about bills, no one offered sympathy. My grandmother asked me loudly about my tutoring business. She asked how many students I had now. I answered with pride. She nodded and said, "You worked for it. You deserve it." The message was clear. The room shifted around me, not him. He realized it too. His face tightened. He did not stay long. He left before dessert. Since then, the isolation has only grown. He still complains to anyone who will listen. But fewer and fewer people do. His son found another tutor, one they had to pay, and from what I heard, he respects that tutor more because money was on the table. The boy even messaged me once to apologize for repeating his father's words. He said he understood now. I accepted the apology. I wished him well. As for me, I am stronger. I learned that boundaries are not cruelty. They are survival. I learned that exposing lies feels messy, but the storm clears faster when truth is bright. I learned that family who guilt you into free labor are not family in spirit. They are just users with shared DNA. The entitled dad still tries sometimes. He posts vague messages online about greedy relatives. He hints to neighbors about betrayal. But I no longer care. I have my students. I have my reputation. I have the support of the relatives who matter. And I have peace.